Apart from universal commercial agriculture, industries based on agro-processing, forest products, services, and ICT, there are industries that are based on the intellect of the human brain. The industries of electric and conventional automobiles, such as buses, minibuses, trucks, and motorbikes, the pathogenic economy, vaccines, pharmaceuticals for human and livestock, space science, energy, including nuclear energy, etc., have each at least a nucleus already laid down here in Uganda as I speak today. All these lines, we have already trained our young people. They are there. And we are supporting them in modest ways. Space science, we have got a unit. Nuclear energy, we've got a unit. And we are moving towards establishing a nuclear plant for electricity and so on, and also for agriculture. We need all this capacity. So therefore, we talk of the 4 sectors: commercial agriculture for everybody who has got land, industry, services, ICT, and within industry we have got the old industries of agro-processing and minerals, but we have also got new ones, the ones of the intellect, of the brain. The book of Galatians, chapter 6, verse 7 in the Bible, tells us that whatever man sows, that is what he reaps. Buri muntu wene kyaba nikyagesha. How has the NRM brought Uganda to the lower step, ecstasy, we call it ecstasy, of the middle income status from such a low base, and in spite of so many challenges? The following are the reasons. Number one, the correct ideology of the NRM, rejecting the sectarian ideas of the past actors, insisting on patriotism, Pan-Africanism, socio-economic transformation, and democracy. This removed oburyane. Oburyane is a Nyankore word for disharmony and tension in the villages, from the community and the country. You saw what was happening with the Namugongo people, these people just walking from all over the place. And you have all these negative fellows, like the ones who basically walking to work. If you are walking peacefully, who will mind about you? You could say millions. The people who were in Namugongo, were they not millions? Walking from all over the place. But they are walking peacefully and with good intention. Who would bother with them? But if you are walking to cause trouble, we cause trouble for you. Karasha ngabo imrasha. That is why Uganda has no refugees living outside Uganda. Even when we had COIN and ADF terrorism, we had internally displaced persons within Uganda, within the country. They never ran outside Uganda. Since the time of the NRM, we have never had refugees from Uganda to other countries, because they have nothing to run away from. Even when there was COIN and so on, everybody knew that it was not the government, it was others who were disturbing. They would have what we call IDP, internally displaced. But they would never go outside the country. So that ideology of the NRM of unity is number one. Number two, a strong army that has ensured peace within Uganda, all the challenges notwithstanding. Number 3, a strong private sector encouraged by the correct pro-private sector policies of the NRM. Most of the surpluses referred to above have been generated by the private sector, farmers, manufacturers, etc. Number 4, the correct Pan-African ideology of the NRM that saw the revival of the East African community, the creation of COMESA, and the Abuja Treaty of 1991 that eventually saw the birth of the CFTA, the Continental Free Trade Area. Today, Uganda exports goods and services worth $1.2 billion to East African community, $1.6 billion to COMESA, and $2 billion to the rest of Africa. Algeria has a market of yesterday $1.2 billion for dairy products that only awaits us to solve the problem of FMD, Erjwa, and CBPP, Chihaha. Ethiopia has a dairy products market of $30 million that only awaits a reliable road from Karbon Kotido to the southern Ethiopia. Number 5, the correct NRM policy of emphasizing science in education and prioritizing the better payment of government scientists if we do not yet have enough money to pay everybody. Africa was colonized and enslaved, and people were exterminated, dominated, or marginalized, not because they lacked storytellers, comedians, musicians, witch doctors and priests, kings and queens, soldiers, farmers, etc., but because they lagged behind in science and technology. That's why we were colonized. We were colonized not because we lacked all these fellows, musicians, storytellers, all those were there. Clowns to make kings laugh. They were all there, but we were colonized because we lagged behind in science and technology. Inability to see this is a threat to our survival as free people, if not survive at all. Our lagging behind in the science and technology of gunpowder and guns, for instance, was one of the greatest handicaps. The private sector needs scientists in addition to managerial cadreship. The state, economic and social infrastructures need scientists, such as researchers, engineers for electricity, engineers for water, engineers for electronics, doctors, vets, etc. So, unity by ideology, the soldiers guarding the peace, the private sector building the economy, the scientists to support this, both the private sector, but also the government infrastructure. Number 6, the correct strategy of the NRM, developing the infrastructure, the roads, the railway, the electricity, the piped water, the telephones, the internet, etc. The crucial roles of infrastructure are to enable, e.g. electricity, and connect, e.g. roads, the producers of goods and services and their consumers, and do so cheaply, so that the product is not overpriced and therefore being competitive in the market. We could have achieved much more if it was not for either the confused people or the enemies of Africa, many of them obstructing us, many times obstructing us. I, for instance, remember the sabotage of Uganda Temple of Development by the 6th Parliament of 1999, on the 8th of November, when they blocked the agreement I had negotiated with AES, American Energy Service, to produce power at 4.9 American cents at Bujagali. And Mr. Chat Chai of Mali Samparan Public Company of Thailand, who was chased by Parliament, whom I had mobilized with the late Mzee Mruana to help us with the milk processing. Dr. Muranga's banana project has been maliciously obstructed many times. Recently, we witnessed the mishandling of the Coffee Valley addition effort here in the Parliament. Uganda has made these gigantic steps, such obstructions notwithstanding. When it comes to the recent high commodity prices, caused initially by the relaunch of the world economy after the 2 years of lockdown, and additionally by the war in Ukraine, our decision, after careful analysis, is to avoid the traps of tax cuts and subsidies. Instead, we are doing two things. One is to engage the global actors that have caused these artificial shortages. I have contacted some of the actors. I'm in touch with all these wonderful people. I'm glad H.E. Biden is going to Saudi Arabia to meet the Crown Prince to get OPEC to pump more petroleum out of the ground. That would definitely help. Also, the chairperson of the African Union, His Excellency Macky Sall, met His Excellency Putin in Sochi, Russia, to ask him to assist in getting the wheat of Ukraine out of the ports of Odessa. And he has also talked to the Europeans to stop sanctioning wheat from Russia and fertilizers because Africa needs them. This is one of the correct ways. We shall use diplomacy to solve this problem created by these wonderful people who fight instead of talking. The other one is to get our own substitutes, like you saw here in the palm oil. Very soon Uganda will be the biggest producer of palm oil in the world. And we would have done it long ago if it was not so, again, for the obstruction in Sango Bay and in Karanga, in Buvuma. There was the young member of parliament there, Egunyu. Oh, wasting a lot of time. The other one is to get our own substitutes, cassava and banana flour for bread, and our own sunflower, soya beans oil, as we wait for our more quantities of palm oil from Sango Bay, Mayuge, Buvuma, Maruzi, Bundubujo, etc. Cutting taxes or subsidies, especially on imports, is suicidal, because our people may buy carelessly and we end up draining our foreign exchange reserves. Moreover, cutting taxes or subsidizing means taking money away from the planned projects and putting it in consumption. Consumption of fuel, bread, etc. That means we stop, for instance, the following roads: Kigumba, Bulima, Kaboya, Chenjojo, 235 kilometers. Those are ongoing. Rukunjiri, Chihi, Shashakanungu, Masindi, Para, Hoima, Butiaba, Wanseko. Those are already ongoing, but there are new ones. Buhimba, Narwe, Bulamaji, Iganga, Kakumiro, Masindi Biso, Hohanya Irongo, Charushesha, Butore, Kabare Kiziramfumbi, Kapchoro Swam, Atiakla Ropi, Busega Mpige Expressway, Muyembe na Kapiripirit, Najana Nkumbi Busabara, Kira Matuga, Ruenkunyu Apach Lira Puranga, Moroto Loktanyara, rehabilitation of Mtiana Mbende Road, Arui, Nebi, and so many of those who stop these roads so that money is put in subsidizing fuel and subsidizing bread. These roads, these projects help these areas. If you go, for instance, now, the other day I was in Katakwi, in Olirim, I was passing out soldiers. The area has changed completely because of that tarmac road. Or stopping the secondary schools, such as Nobo Mayombo Seed Secondary School in Kavarore, Awara Seed Secondary School in Arua, Nairambe Seed Secondary School in Buvuma, or universities like Soroti, Moon University, or cutting some money from PDM or Emyoga, meaning money taken away from production to consumption on account of a temporary problem. Let us maintain our momentum of development. The high commodity prices will be solved in other ways, some of them outlined above. In foreign affairs, Uganda abstained in the votes in the UN on the issue of Ukraine. You must have heard the arguments of the two sides. We have communicated our views confidentially to the two sides, the Western Bloc and Russia. At some stage, we shall give our views publicly. Our views are very correct, but we are giving them quietly. On the issue of security within the Great Lakes region, the regional conferences like the one we had in Nairobi some weeks ago on the issue of security within the region, in the regional conferences like the one we had in Nairobi some weeks ago, we share our history with the African brothers and sisters. Some of the problems never get solved on account of mixing up three issues: armed conflicts for just causes, armed conflicts for reactionary aims, and the use of terrorist methods, whatever the nature of the conflict, just or unjust. The tendency, which is not correct, is to bunch all conflicting parties as negative forces. Uganda is a good laboratory for all manner of conflicts. We have the just wars like the ones waged between 1971 and 1986 by the different fighting groups against the regimes of Amin, Obote II, and Okero. Why just? Why do we call them just wars? It is because the fight was about the freedom of vote by secret ballot for all adults above the age of 18 at regular intervals. The struggle against extrajudicial killings, the struggle against sectarianism that was enforced by arms, etc. The last elections had been in April 1962, and we never had any other elections until the 10th of December 1980, after 18 years. Even those elections were contested from the beginning of the process to the end. We tried to talk to the groups that thought they had the upper hand, to no avail. And once still, they would kill anybody with a different opinion. Ben Kiwanuka, Basilio Bataringaya, Alexander Latim, Oriema, Kasura, Sebugwao, Rutamaguzi, Nkanjirwa, etc. People were being killed. We therefore had no alternative but to fight. That is why, between 1966 and 1986, Uganda was among the top 4 refugees generating countries in the world at that time. At one time, Uganda had 500,000 refugees, almost the whole population of West Nile, in exile in Congo and South Sudan. While I do not want to talk about other African countries, I am sure that I can safely cite at least 2 examples. The struggle by the SPLM of the Sudan against the Arab Islamic chauvinist regime of Khartoum, which was insisting that the very dark Dinkas, Shiruks, Nuer, etc. of South Sudan were Arabs and had to live under Sharia law. If you have got a sample of a South Sudanese and he stands up and you see him, and you call him an Arab, you must be out of your mind. How do you resolve that madness? These were mad. You know, we would spend years talking to Bashir, but these people are not Arabs. Why do you call Sudan an Arab country? And why do you want to make Sudan Islamic? These are not Muslims. They are not even, many of them are not even Christian. They are our traditional religion. Why do you bother them? But madness is quite democratic in the world. How do you resolve that madness? How about the whites in South Africa, who said that the indigenous Africans could not have voting rights in the country of their ancestry? You imagine we had to spend years with the whites in South Africa. The answer was a just war in each of the above situations. You then have unjust wars of either aggression or of a reactionary nature, non-progressive. Take the colonial wars of conquest. Why were the colonists conquering other countries? What right did they have to do so? Then you come to ADF, Kony, Lakwena, etc. ADF said that they wanted to make Uganda Islamic by force. Kony wanted to rule us by some commandments that were to be given him by the Holy Spirit. Lakwena wanted government megwa. In Acholi, that means our government, by which she meant the Acholi tribal government over the whole of Uganda. These were aims, all right, but they were wrong aims, oppressive aims, negative and progressive aims. They were therefore reactionary, kupinga maendeleo aims, and hence the wars fought in their implementation were unjust wars, just like the wars of the colonial conquest. Having talked about just and unjust wars, we also clarified the issue of terrorism. It is wrong to say that every armed group is a terrorist group, whether they are fighting a just or unjust war. Take Lakwena, for instance. Although she was fighting an unjust war over Acholi sectarianism, She was definitely not a terrorist because she was not using terrorist methods. Terrorist methods mean using violence indiscriminately, such as attacking non-combatants, killing prisoners of war, or torturing them. Lakwena was confused, using the witchcraft of the smearing her fighters with the oil of moya tree, shea butter tree, and telling them that they were immune to bullets, but she was not a terrorist because she was not targeting non-combatants, she was not killing prisoners of war. That is how Major Biensi survived, one of our army officers. When Biensi was captured, Lakwena said, no, you bring him here. I will make him a member of the Holy Spirit movement, of the Lakwena movement. Then Biensi was put there and he was smeared with moya oil that he had not. Then the man took the first chance to escape again. So definitely Lakwena was not a terrorist. She was confused, but not a terrorist. Cohen and ADF were, on the other hand, fighting both an unjust war, but also a terrorist one. Why? It is because they were targeting non-combatants, killing prisoners of war, etc., the Atiak massacre, the Baronyo massacre, the Stramba burning of 8 students in the dormitory, the Chiburara Seminary massacre, the abductions of young people to force them to fight for them, the abduction of sex slaves. It is those acts that make a fighter a terrorist. Even if you are fighting for a just cause, if you target non-combatants, use forced recruitment other than conscription by the state, kill prisoners of war, take sex slaves, you become a terrorist. Therefore, in the whole of the Great Lakes area, the concerned groups should be audited as to whether they are fighting for a just cause or not, and as to whether they are using terrorist methods or not. What is then the correct method of resolving such armed conflicts? What is our experience? Our experience and even other good experiences show that combining both political and military methods is the correct way, especially for the non-terrorist armed groups, even when they are fighting for an unjust cause, e.g. sectarianism. Priority should be given to dialogue leading to a political solution. Even for the terrorist groups, if they accept dialogue, it should be tried. It is through dialogue, combined with military efforts, that we reach solutions with Angelo Okero, Bamuze, Musa Echweru. Musa Echweru is here. Where is Musa Echweru? That man was a rebel. Benzi, UFM, FEDEM, etc. Using force is like using surgery in medicine. Surgery is used as a method of last resort when less violent methods to the body can no longer work. Even then, it should be used in a very restricted way, affecting only the sick part, not the rest of the body. East Africa, and our chairman, H.E. Kenyatta, can resolve all these security challenges using appropriate actions, political methods where feasible, and force where necessary. Uganda is ready and able to contribute to all these efforts. Congo and Uganda, since November 30th, 2021, crushed the ADF in Eastern Congo. ADF cannot operate in large groups anymore in the three sectors of Sector 2, Ituri, Sector 1 and 2, North Kivu. I think one is Sector 3. This is Sector 2, Ituri, Sector 1 and 3 in North Kivu. The ADF survivors have either gone into hiding or have fled beyond what we call the limit of exploitation, the boundary where the Congo Army allowed us to reach. However, in smaller groups, I'm told the ADF is still sneaking back in some of the sectors and killing some unguarded villagers. There is a solution to such a problem that we used to deal with those smaller groups attacking the soft targets of unguarded wananchi. We are discussing all this with the government of Congo. Within Uganda, we have strengthened the security on the whole, including Karamoja and the surrounding districts. We have trained tens of thousands of LDUs that I passed out at Kaweweta, Laboldong, Olodim, etc. recently, and many of them have been absorbed into the divisions to boost manpower. As I've said repeatedly, the cattle rustlers will soon lose appetite for the gun. However, the cattle rustlers and other terrorists should be condemned, and they should also condemn themselves because of Okwetera and Ndobo, Bekube and Ndobo. We football players, sometimes you can hurt yourself, you can kick your own shin, and it's very painful. And it is called Okwetera and Ndobo. I think in Uganda they call it Okwekube and Ndobo. Hurting one's shin as you play football. In 1991, we reduced the manpower of the army from 100,000 to 40,000 to save money by having less infantry so that we can buy better equipment on account of the situation in the region at that time that had the potential for possible interstate conflicts. You could not fight such conflicts with just infantry, soldiers just walking on foot. Even counterinsurgency needed some capacity of combined arms. That is how we were able to build the strategic elements of our defense forces, such as Air Force, artillery, tanks, reconnaissance, etc. That is how we were able to achieve victories and cope with the dangerous security situations in the region. Having smaller numbers of personnel and more equipment was a smart way of building a modern army able to defend the borders of the country against external serious threats. The modern equipment alone, however, will not handle indisciplined elements walking on foot, stealing cattle, killing people, raping women, etc. On account of activities of those confused people, we are now forced to build up the manpower of the armed forces again, far above the figure of 1991. That means a bigger wage bill, feeding, health, education for the children of the soldiers, accommodation, etc. This is the money we should be spending in Karamoja and other areas, on the roads, the schools, the health centers, the partial development model, the Emyoga. Indeed, the Karamojong have seen the tarmac road from Soroti to Moroto, from Moroto to Nakapiripirit, the electricity from Opuyo to Moroto, from Moroto to Kotido, Kabonga, Bim. They have seen the schools. They have seen the health centers. It is government money that has been doing all that. Nevertheless, we are now diverted by our indisciplined cattle rustlers to spend money on more soldiers, infantry. To fight what war and against whom? To fight a war of ignorance and fight against our expanded prosperity. All understanding people should denounce this sabotage. You, the leaders, really should talk to our people that they are undermining themselves. Because the money we are spending on soldiers, what? This is money which they should be using to solve their problems. With what I have said above, Uganda is on the right path and has been for the last 36 years. We only need to be mindful of 3 points: the environment, corruption, and chauvinism in business. You have seen what can happen to countries when they cannot produce their own food. There is no problem Uganda cannot solve, as I have said above, as long as we are able to produce most or all of our food. To do this, you need soil and, above all, fresh water. This means environmental protection, protecting the wetlands, all of them, the riverbanks, the lake shores, and the forests, and also planting trees, even in inhabited areas. I have warned all sub-county and Miruka chiefs, as well as cows, not to forget the environment officers, the GSOs and the DSOs, manning areas where I will discover encroachment on wetlands, will be sacked, and if legally possible, also criminally prosecuted. This is for all areas of Uganda, except some areas of Busoga, Bukedi, and Kigezi, where historically there was misguided government encouragement of people going into wetlands to grow swamp rice and start dairy farms. Those areas of historical mistakes will also be recovered by working with the stakeholders to shift to fish farming in the periphery of those wetlands, which activity is much more profitable, so as to allow the wetlands to regenerate. All the others must unconditionally leave the wetlands because nobody took them there, and many of these are recent, which means they are doing it in deliberate defiance of plans to save their country. The swamp of Busemba, between Kiroro and Karasa, was the river crossing where our machine gunner, Mondo Tumhairwe, used to do a lot of damage to the UNLA. There was not a single encroacher at that time. It is now invaded, and so is Mayanja, Wenkarwe, Wabukokoma, etc. When I go to those areas, I really want to get out of the car and start fighting. These are areas I know very well. They must get out. Those swamps had nobody who was in those swamps. When I flew to Chiwoko recently, I saw the swamps that feed into Mayanja, Machebebe, Chizikibi, etc., Binji and Crockstone. This is my last warning to the local authorities all over Uganda. Damage to our local water bodies affects 40% of our rainfall. How can we tolerate that? This is a danger to our very own existence. The global mistake makers are endangering the globe and humanity with the greenhouse gases. Humanity will struggle against them. Why should we reinforce their mistakes with ours? Another danger to our rapid socio-economic transformation is the corruption of political actors and public servants who do not only steal government money, thereby denying the population the services that money would have provided, but they also parasite on our business people. Business people and investors do not feel beholden to these parasites, expose both their requests for bribes and their schemes for frustrating those that do not pay bribes. Action will be taken for the benefit of the business atmosphere in the country. Finally, on strategic issues, I must point out the mistake of those who proclaim what they call indigenous business people as being more useful to the country than the foreigners. Some people even talk of factory Yomuyindi, an Indian factory. There are no Indian or Chinese factories in Uganda. Indian factories and Chinese factories are in India and China respectively. Economics helped us to understand this problem long ago by providing for us a measurement of the size of the economy with two measurements: GDP, gross domestic product, and GNP, gross national product. GDP refers to the value of all production of goods and services on our territory, whether by our citizens or not. GNP is the measurement of the value of the production of goods and services by our citizens, whether on our territory or elsewhere. Economies that do not discriminate among wealth creators prosper. The German Jew by the names of Robert Oppenheimer, who was discriminated by the Nazi in Germany, is the one that helped the USA to develop a nuclear bomb. The people that should be discriminated are the unrepentant comprador bourgeoisie, the commission agents, the importers of foreign consumer goods that could be made here, the exporters of unprocessed raw materials at 10% of their eventual value as the final products. These are the ones that we should talk about. A foreign manufacturer of goods based in Uganda is more useful to the country than an importer of foreign consumer goods that can be made here, who is a citizen of Uganda. However, patriotic importers do not import perennially, endlessly. I was told that Dangote used to import cement, but graduated and became a cement manufacturer, not only in Nigeria, but in many parts of Africa. I was also told that in 1931, Samsung was importing textiles in South Korea. He graduated from that and became the big producer of electronic gadgets, such as computers. Let us stop mixing water with mud by calling bad good and good bad. Such countries stagnate. China developed because of the clear vision of Mao Zedong and Deng Xiaoping. Mao Zedong helped China by pointing out the positive alliance of what he called the four classes: the national bourgeoisie, the peasants, the proletariat, and the patriotic petty bourgeoisie, against the parasitic comprador agent bourgeoisie that were working as foreign agents for other people's interests. There was a group called Kasita here. That Kasita, their business was importing Oaxaca. And at one time they even organized a strike because we had put taxes on their carpets and women's hair and what they were importing from outside. They went on a strike and we said, okay, we're going to fight you. So those who abatujjamu omusaayi gye bagutwala, they are the problem. Buli omu atuteekamu omusaayi tumwaniriza. Therefore, let all the NRM MPs and other positive elements rally around the patriotic program of the NRM that has transformed Uganda from the failed state of 1986, with the economy expanding in size 30 times plus in the 30 years, in spite of the endless betrayals by certain elements. Those who cause frictions among the NRM fraternity should be carefully examined. Why can't you discuss any matter in a non-antagonistic way? Why? Because I normally hear people fighting this one. Why do you fight somebody who is on your side? Why don't you go and talk to him or her? What is this? Even if somebody is making a mistake, go and talk to him or her. Then you go together. You see the speaker, you see the prime minister, you see the vice president, and solve it. But tension. This one is accusing that. Why? That's not a good sign. Anybody who is causing unnecessary friction among us is not a good person. Because the problem is that, of course, you are not fighter. You have never fought. You are just there in air conditioning and eating mandas and things like that. But for me, I appreciate, because at one time, when we were attacking Idi Amin in 1972, I had one UPC neighbor, a young boy who had been recruited by UPC, who didn't know how to fight. We were fighting Amin soldiers at Makenke, opposite Mbara Barracks, on the left, as you face Masaka. And we were on an anthill. I was on an anthill firing at these Amin huge fellows with big stomachs. I think I punctured a few of them. And then this UPC boy was afraid. He didn't even see where he was firing. He put a gun near my ear, fired. The eardrum almost burst. So when you have got a bad neighbor, that's when you know. But for you people, God has given you all these friends. You can relate with them for a lifetime, but instead you are fighting. You are accusing one another. You are what? Instead of using good methods of interacting so that you get a common solution, the thing is to undermine one another. That's not good. That's not a good sign. If you see such people, you should know that they are not good people. For me, I need people. Because I need them. For you, Mnyankwere will say, I think you don't even know our local languages. Because Mnyankwere will say, no kwata bantu ijaga nko bashagize. You are mishandling people as if you have got excess people on your side. The Bajankore say, enyengeserezo tebanche. Even if you have got a number of things, any addition to you is welcome. That's why one time I quarreled with my people. You know, there was a bad girl called Beatrice Anywar. Do you know that woman? That girl was really a confused type. But I used to talk well with her. Whenever I met her, you would talk. Because my job is to win over people. Even those who are against me. So one time we were in a place called Omia Nyima. And I don't know what God had visited Anwar. She came to my rally. Because she was like an enemy, she was attacking me all the time. But me, I would talk to her very nicely. But when she came to my rally, my people refused to give her a chair. I was really annoyed with my people. Why do you refuse to give Anwar a chair? She's on the other side, she has come. She's adding to our strength. Why do you to treat her as if she's a bad person? I was not happy with my group there in Omia Nyima. It is blessed, even biblically, for you to bring people together instead of causing conflict. The bulk of the 11th Parliament have been acting positively. Mwevale nnyo apoyo mateka eyalama alakara noe awadefo I congratulate everybody. The other people, I wanted to fight the guards who were shouting at me the other day. But when I went there and ran away, I was ready for them. But later on, I used my spy network to know who they were. I will phone them up and we sort it out. I congratulate everybody, especially the Speaker, and the Deputy Speaker. I also congratulate the Vice President and the Prime Minister, the latter being leader of government business in Parliament. On account of this positiveness, Parliament has passed the following legislations in the last 12 months. The Administration of Parliament Bill 2021, the National Social Security Fund, you know the laws we have passed. They are all here. I think I have a list here of 23. Thank you so much. Some of these are very strategic for the further growth of the economy. These include the law on the East African oil pipeline, known as the East African Crude Oil Pipeline, ECOP, Special Provisions Bill 2021, and the one that allows industrial parks to get power direct from the generation by bypassing umeme. I thank and I congratulate everybody that was involved. In the coming year, the government will bring the following bills. They are all here. They are listed here. You will get a copy of the speech. There are so many. Let me see how many are they? 62. So I don't have to read them, but they are in the speech which they will give you. Uganda and Africa are unstoppable. Long live Uganda, long live East Africa, long live Africa. I thank everybody. After overcoming the consequences of COVID-19 and the high commodity prices, we shall go back to our other manifesto issues, e.g. free education. On Corona, however, the public needs to be careful again. Why were people not putting on masks at Namugongo? I was watching those Namugongo people, they were not putting on masks. I think they may think wrongly that when you are in a church, you don't get infected. So I'm a bit worried about what I saw happening there. We are now again getting 2 deaths per week from Corona. Be alert again, please. I thank you, and I wish everybody good luck. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, Excellency, for the good message, and thank you for honoring our invitation and fulfilling your